this is Trupti Jain and I am going to explain you my biology topic, the process of oogenesis that takes place in the female human body. Now, oogenesis is basically the process of gametogenesis. The gametogenesis means the synthesis of gametes that takes place at the age of puberty in male and female, and it takes place in the male, in case of male it takes place in male gonad, and in female it takes place in female gonad. Now here my main topic is about the female gametogenesis, which is known as oogenesis, the process of formation of egg inside the ovary. Ovary is the one pair ovary present in the female body that is the main primary sexual organ in human female. Now what happened in oogenesis process? Basically oogenesis is the entirely different process as compared to that of male spermatogenesis. Why they are different? Why? Because spermatogenesis takes place or starts at the age of puberty. That means after the birth, and when the puberty age arises, then only the spermatogenesis process occurs. But in case of female, this oogenesis process has already been started in the fetal life. That means whenever the female child present in her mother's womb, she has not taken even birth right now, then only this oogenesis process has already been started. That means in the fetal life. Now what happens in the oogenesis process exactly? So this is the section of ovary which I have drawn, inside which the whole process of oogenesis is taking place. Now this is the section of ovary. This ovary is outermost covering of the ovary is known as tunica albuginea, outside which there is a layer known as germinal epithelium. This germinal epithelium contains the germ cells, basically germinal epithelial cells only, which shed off into the peripheral region. That means what happened actually, oogenesis occurring in the peripheral or outer region known as cortex. So in the cortex region, the germ cells shed off and it differentiates into the oogonial cells. These are all oogonial cells. That means this oogonial cell now multiply themselves. Basically the multiplication phase takes place. All type of gametogenesis, that is spermatogenesis, whether it is oogenesis, they are completing in 3 phases: multiplication phase, growth phase and the maturation phase. So this is the first phase which is occurring in the fetal life only. So the multiplication phase in which the oogonial cell multiplying themselves. Now each oogonial cell enlarges their size and form a primary oocyte. That means this is the growth phase. Now this primary oocyte is still in its diploid state, because in the gametogenesis process what happened, the chromosome number is meant to reduce half of its number. So this is primary oocyte which is still present in the diploid state. It is converting into the now primary follicle. Basically what is this primary follicle? This primary follicle means one layer of oogonal cell deposit around the primary oocyte, and that layer of granulosa cells known as theca interna. This is known as theca interna. This is known as theca interna layer. Now what happened? This primary follicle structure, the formation of this primary follicle structure till this phase, this process occurring in fetal life only. That means the whole process from here to here, till the formation of primary follicle, it occurs in the fetal life only. It has happened, completed in fetal life. In fetal life, what happened? This primary oocyte which is present inside the primary follicle, it has started its meiosis 1 cell division, but it has arrested at this particular stage. That means the meiosis 1 cell division arrested at the stage of metaphase 1. That means again I'm saying this primary oocyte present inside this primary follicle still in their diploid state. It has not completed its meiotic 1 cell division to reduce the chromosome number. Now what happened? Now the female child is taking birth. So from birth to the age of puberty, what happened? The primary follicle number gets few of the primary follicle number degenerate. So till puberty age, only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicle remain in each section of the ovary of female body. Now what happened at the age of puberty? What is happening? Every month, that means the menstrual cycle is going to be started. So in the process of menstrual cycle, what happened? Every month the primary follicle undergoes the various phases or various changes to form the functional ovum. Now what is happening? Like every month this primary follicle transforms into the secondary follicle. Now what is the secondary follicle? Here what is happening? The theca interna, which was single layer in the fetal life, it becomes multi-layered. So multi-layered theca interna form, inside which this basically primary oocyte is present only. So this is still a primary oocyte which is present in the diploid state. Now what happened? This secondary follicle transforms into the tertiary follicle. Now what is this tertiary follicle? When multi-layered theca interna covered by or surrounded by the another layer known as theca externa. So this is the tertiary follicle structure. Now when this tertiary follicle structure forms, what happened? The primary oocyte inside this follicle complete its meiosis 1 cell division, which was arrested at the stage of metaphase 1 during fetal life, but at the age of puberty every month, what is happening? This primary oocyte is converting or completing the meiosis 1 cell division and form the first tiny polar body. That means here only this tertiary follicle, inside the tertiary follicle, primary oocyte converted to the secondary oocyte, and here the chromosome number gets half. So then after what happens, this tertiary follicle transforms into the Graafian follicle. What is this Graafian follicle? Is basically here the theca interna, that means the multi-layered theca interna distributing themselves to the different layers and form the matured structure known as Graafian follicle. The name Graafian has been placed over the name of the scientist who actually observed this Graafian follicle under the microscope for the very first time. So what is this Graafian follicle is all about? Here what happens, theca interna, few layers of theca interna get separated, then cells separated from each other and form a cavity known as antrum. Inside this antrum, this secondary oocyte structure is present. So in this particular Graafian follicle structure, what is happening? The secondary oocytes start forming another membrane around itself known as zona pellucida and also the outermost layer corona radiata. Now this particular mature Graafian follicle, whenever it forms, now what is happening, what will happen? This secondary oocyte has started its meiosis 2 cell division. That is meiotic 2 cell division will going to start inside this Graafian follicle in the secondary oocyte. But again it has been arrested at the anaphase 2 phase or anaphase 2 stage of the meiosis 2 cell division. Now at this particular stage, this whole secondary oocyte ruptured. That means it come out of the ovary by rupturing of this Graafian follicle, and this secondary oocyte come out into the fallopian tube through the process known as ovulation. Now after ovulation, the ruptured Graafian follicle, that means all the ruptured part which left inside the ovary because secondary oocyte has entered into the fallopian tube to wait for the fertilization to take place. That means the secondary oocyte is waiting for the sperm to come in the fallopian tube and fertilize with it for the fertilization process. But what happened with this ruptured Graafian follicle part present inside the ovary now convert into the another structure known as corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is a structure designed for secreting the hormone, progesterone hormone, because progesterone hormone is meant for the establishment, or you can say for the thickening of the endometrium lining of the uterus so that the growth of fetus can be take place. But what happened if sperm does not arrive and in absence of fertilization, this corpus luteum will going to degenerate into corpus albicans and that functional ovum also gets degenerated. But what if fertilization takes place, or you can say if sperm arrive, then what happened? That secondary oocyte which has undergone the meiotic 2 cell division but arrested at the stage of anaphase 2, due to the entry of sperm, it completes its meiosis 2 cell division and form another tiny polar body and forms a functional ovum which fuses with the sperm nucleus to form a diploid zygote to ensure the establishment of pregnancy. Now, so this is all about the section of ovary inside which how this oogenesis process takes place. But if I explain the menstrual cycle along with it, that means all the hormonal control which happens during menstrual cycle. Now what is happening in the menstrual cycle process? Menstrual cycle is again the reproductive cycle takes place in female ovary. So it starts at the stage of puberty, only at the age of puberty. So the condition when it starts is known as menarche, and the condition when it stops at the age of 45 to 50 is known as menopause. The menstrual cycle is a female reproductive cycle divided into 4 phases, 4 stages. That is, one phase is menstrual phase. What happens in this particular phase, in the absence of fertilization, when there was no sperm, then what happened? The functional ovum which was waiting for the sperm gets degenerate because it is viable only for 24 to 48 hours. So after that, if sperm will not arrive, the functional ovum gets degenerate. The corpus luteum will convert into corpus albicans, and the progesterone, due to the lack of progesterone hormone, the endometrium lining of the uterus also starts to degenerate. So in this particular phase, menstrual phase, which is of 3 to 5 days duration, FSH hormone and the LH hormone remains low. So no follicle formation takes place, and all the preparation of the fertilization going to be destroyed. So next phase arises as basically the second is follicular phase, or you can say the proliferative phase, follicular proliferative phase. This particular phase, what happened? New follicle formation takes place. That means the primary follicle transforms into secondary follicle, secondary into tertiary follicle, which I have already taught. This tertiary follicle then transforms into the Graafian follicle. Now, what is happening in this follicular phase? Due to the development of the thicker internal layer, the hormone estrogen is increasing, because in the follicular phase the hormone FSH hormone level increases. This FSH hormone is a hormone secreted by the pituitary gland. Basically, that FSH hormone stimulates the process of formation of these follicles, or you can say stimulates the follicular phase. Due to the FSH, the follicle formation takes place, and in the follicle, as theca interna is forming, this theca interna is responsible to secrete the hormone estrogen. This estrogen hormone is responsible to develop the endometrium lining of the uterus, because it is very important for the growth of fetus. Now what happens, since in the follicular phase, which is of around 10 to 12 days, estrogen hormone is increasing, FSH hormone is increasing. Now this Graafian follicle formation has completed in follicular phase. Now then after the ovulatory, third phase comes in the menstrual cycle, which is ovulatory phase. In ovulatory phase, what happens, which is of 1 to 2 days duration only, this is the mid of the cycle. Now as the Graafian follicle formed in the follicular phase, now this secondary oocyte is ready to come out into the fallopian tube by rupturing this Graafian follicle. So this process of rupturing of Graafian follicle to release the secondary oocyte structure out of the ovary into the fallopian tube is known as ovulation. But how this ovulation taking place? The hormone LH, basically the luteinizing hormone, increases at a very high level at this stage, and this is known as LH surge or LH peak. So this LH hormone induces the process of ovulation. As such, the formation of ovulation takes place. That means the Graafian follicle rupture, that means the theca internal layer also ruptured. So the level of estrogen hormone reduces or decreases, and this corpus, the ruptured follicular part convert into corpus luteum, which occurs in the next phase known as luteal phase or secretory phase. This is of around 12 to 14 days in which corpus luteum formation takes place. That means this corpus luteum, now since estrogen hormone has already reduced, so the progesterone hormone now secreted by corpus luteum in luteal phase, which takes up the role of estrogen, that is again the thickening of endometrium lining of uterus. Now what happens if the fertilization does not take place? Then again the corpus luteum convert into corpus albicans, and that functional ovum which is waiting for the sperm to fertilize with it, so it also gets degenerate, and the endometrium lining of the uterus will also start to degenerate and comes out with the menstrual outflow. So again the menstrual phase starts. So this is about the menstrual cycle, which goes on in 4 phases, that is menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulatory phase and the luteal phase. So that's all for today. Thank you.